You need to stop what you're doing and watch this video. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Somebody in China made a response video to the ongoing tariffs between US and China. And this is how they feel about us, y'all. Look at this shit, y'all. They trying to say that's us. I'm not gonna lie. This shit look crazy, fool. That's how somebody or a lot of them feel about us on that side. Shit crazy. So they saying this how we gonna be looking working in them shops that they work in. They calling us big and lazy. Pretty much saying they don't think we're gonna be able to do it. They like, this the people y'all want to get this work done? This the people y'all want to make the clothes, Shein, Temu, make iPhones and shit? Y'all want them to look like this? Y'all work never gonna get done. That's what they saying essentially. They like, fine, you putting tariffs on us, then we're not going to do it no more. Y'all going to have to do it yourself. And y'all really want to rely on people that look like that? That's what I got from it.
China is mocking America following Trump's decision to impose new tariffs on Chinese goods. The idea behind these tariffs, according to Trump, is to bring back manufacturing jobs and revive the American industrial sector. He wants to see factories returning to US soil, providing employment to Americans and making the country more self-sufficient. However, China doesn't seem to be taking this serious. In fact, they've responded with mockery, especially through AI-generated videos circulating online that make fun of the American work ethic. According to these videos, China believes Americans are too lazy to handle factory jobs. They see Americans as people who want comfort over hard work, people who prefer air-conditioned offices to factory floors, and who rely too heavily on government support to be motivated to take up physically demanding jobs. This video may seem disrespectful or exaggerated to some, but they reflect a perception that's been brewing for years.
So it appears that some Chinese social media accounts on TikTok have taken to trolling Americans for the reindustrialization of America. This is all AI generated video, and it's basically depicting middle Americans, your average middle Americans, you know, sewing and doing like tech jobs, working on assembly line type stuff. Now, to be fair, most of those people that make these troll videos probably haven't seen Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe, because Americans have been doing industrial related jobs for a long time. It's just that now they're trying to bring more manufacturing back to America and kind of rely less on other nations. Now, it's likely that these troll accounts are posting these things as a result of like the trade war that's kind of going on between the United States and China. For example, the Chinese Commerce Ministry said, quote, "The U.S. side's threat to escalate tariffs against China is a mistake on top of a mistake, once again exposing the American side's blackmailing nature," end quote. And then they also said, quote, "If the U.S. insists on having its way, China will fight to the end," end quote. Now, this is all probably as a result of the reciprocal tariffs that were announced by the president last week, and how the president also threatened to spike the tariffs up and ratchet them up on U.S. imports from China up to 100% in response to China's decision to match the reciprocal tariffs.
If American manufacturers could make real money in the US, they would have already done it already. Let's be honest. Even when they bring factories back to the United States, it's not going to be for the jobs. It's always for the capital. It's always for the gains. Everything will be automated. The bots don't need healthcare. The bots don't need lunch break. And yeah, people love blaming China, cheap labor this, unfair advantage that, but it's not just about wages. It's about infrastructures, high-speed trains, massive road networks, and dormitories for workers, and way less red tapes. China built to build. The US plays catch up while corporations chase stock price. Trump thought he can bully China into submission with tariffs. I think that's cute. The people in charge here in China right now, most are born in or before 80s. Most of us grew up with nothing. We were poor. I remember in the 80s, no toilet at home. I don't have a toilet in my family. We had to walk to a public washroom in the middle of the night. We are so used to struggle, we don't fall under pressure. We are thriving in it. This trade war is not gonna hurt China the way you think. It's gonna hurt US small businesses. And when they go down, big corporation going to buy them up. In the end of the day, you will be working for Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk while still blaming China. Go ahead, tell me wrong.
The harsh truth, whether we like it or not, is that many Americans have indeed grown used to a certain lifestyle that doesn't involve manual labor. Over the years, there's been a major shift in the workforce. Most people now prefer office jobs, tech roles, and remote work opportunities. The younger generation especially has been raised with the belief that working in factories, farms, or doing blue-collar jobs is less desirable or even beneath them. This shift in mentality is what China is mocking. They see a society that's distanced itself from the very labor that once built its economy. And it's not just speculation, there is evidence to support this. Many factories that try to operate in the US in the past faced challenges not just with cost but also with staffing. Positions often go unfilled for long periods. Even agricultural work, which is physically demanding, relies heavily on immigrant labor. Many Americans don't want those jobs, and when immigration policies tighten, entire sectors suffer due to labor shortages. This dependence on immigrants has become a backbone for industries that many Americans no longer want to work in.
So if you know Chinese people, you know that their shade and their humor is legendary. They take no prisoners, they say exactly what they want to say, and they just don't hold back, and it's fantastic. Today was a fascinating day because the US imposed a 104% tariff on China. We'll see how that goes, by the way. I was going to work today with a couple of colleagues, and we went to Starbucks. My Chinese colleagues go up and they buy their coffee, and then they let me go, and they're like, oh, no, he's American, charge him double. Oh, it was amazing. And the jokes throughout the day were just unrelenting. We're gonna have a fun journey with this. So stay tuned for all the shade that I'm going to get as an American living in China.
Meanwhile, the reality in China is the opposite. China has a massive manufacturing base. Their workforce is used to long hours, difficult conditions, and minimal pay, at least compared to Western standards. And they get the job done. That is why China became the factory of the world in the first place. They've built a system where manufacturing is efficient, affordable, and scalable. So when the US decides to slap tariffs on Chinese goods, thinking it will hurt China and boost America jobs, China simply laughs and mocks because they know America isn't ready to compete in that area anymore. That's the problem. The US is trying to hurt China with tariffs, but in reality, it's going to hurt America consumers more. Tariffs mean higher prices. When goods become expensive to import, companies pass the cost on to the customers. So the same product that cost $20 before may now cost $30 to $40. That hurts the average American, not China. China will continue to manufacture, export to other countries, and keep its economy moving. But American families, especially those already struggling financially, will feel the pinch. There's also another point to consider: the reliance on government assistance in the US. A significant portion of the population survive on government support, be it food stamps, unemployment benefits, housing aid, or healthcare subsidies. This dependency, while sometimes necessary, has also created a situation where some people don't feel the pressure to take jobs they don't like. Why go work at a physically demanding job when you can survive without it? It's a tough conversation, but it needs to be had. Bringing back factories is not just about the buildings or machines. It's about the people. If there aren't enough people willing to work in those factories, then what's the point? Without the workforce, those factories will either shut down again or resort to hiring migrants, which is what they were doing in the first place. So it becomes a cycle, and China knows this. That is why they are mocking the US. Not because the idea of manufacturing is bad, but because they believe Americans aren't ready to do the work it requires. There is also a huge gap in training. Many of the manufacturing jobs today aren't like the ones from the 50 years ago. They require technical skills, familiarity with the machines, and the ability to follow strict production procedures. If the US really wants to bring back manufacturing, there needs to be serious investment in vocational training, apprenticeships, and education. Otherwise, even the few who are willing won't be prepared for the demands of the job. China's mocking isn't just about laziness, it's about preparedness. They're basically saying you can bring back factories, but you can't bring the workers. And unless America tackles this issue head on, the plan to become more self-reliant will fail. Now, let's look at another angle. If Trump is so determined to bring back manufacturing, what's his plan to make it attractive to Americans? Will these jobs pay more? Will they offer better benefits? Because right now, most factory jobs in the US don't offer the same appeal as tech or office jobs. People want comfort, flexibility, and security. Unless factory jobs are rebranded and made more desirable, people will continue to avoid them. China's confidence also stems from its dominance in global supply chains. They don't just make goods, they supply parts for things that assemble in other countries. Even if a company decides to move a factory out of China, it often needs Chinese components. That is how deeply embedded China is in the manufacturing ecosystem. So even if America stops buying finished products from China, it will still rely on Chinese parts, machines, and materials. That is why these tariffs are risky. They're not hurting China the way Trump thinks. They're making life harder for American businesses and consumers. Companies have to deal with unpredictable pricing, disrupted supply chains, and longer wait times. And in today's economy, where everything moves fast, that kind of instability is damaging. It's also important to talk about how this affects America's global image. When other countries see China mocking the US, they start to question America's strength and seriousness. If you want to be a global leader, let's not forget that China has also evolved technologically. They're investing heavily in artificial intelligence, robotics, and renewable energy. They are not just staying in the past, they are leaping into the future. And while the US is focused on reviving the past through manufacturing, China is building new industries. That is why they feel confident mocking America. They believe they are ahead. Some Americans argue back that they are hardworking and that if the factories come back, they will work. But talk is easy. The reality is seen in action. If Americans truly want to prove China wrong, then it will take more than patriotism and pride. It will take training, sacrifice, and a willingness to do hard jobs again. Historically, the US was built on hard work. Immigrants came to the country and worked in factories, railroads, mines, and fields. They sacrificed for a better future. Somewhere along the line, that culture began to fade. Today's society prioritizes comfort and convenience. That is not necessarily wrong, but it makes competing with China on manufacturing terms much harder. At the end of the day, if America truly wants to shift from dependence on Chinese goods, then it needs a solid long-term plan. It needs to support small businesses that manufacture locally, offer tax breaks to companies that produce in the US, and invest in building a workforce that can meet the demands of the industrial jobs. This issue goes beyond Trump. Any leader who wants to reduce foreign dependence must understand the full picture. You can't just impose tariffs and expect change overnight. You need to build infrastructure, empower people, and create a culture that values all types of work equally, not just the glamorous ones. To sum it all up, Trump wants to bring back manufacturing jobs, and that is a noble goal, but the approach needs to be realistic. Americans need to be willing, trained, and motivated to take those jobs. Otherwise, the plan is bound to fail. China's mockery might seem offensive, but it also serves as a wake-up call. If the US doesn't change its strategy, it won't just lose the trade war, it will lose its edge. Whether you agree with China or not, you can't ignore the cracks in the American system. This is bigger than Trump. It's about the future of the American workforce, the economy, and global leadership. If America wants to raise, it has to adapt and fast. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Are Americans really ready to go back to factory work, or is China exposing a deeper truth? Leave your thoughts on the comments, and also remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.